What's up, guys, and welcome back to OWL by the Numbers, your one-stop spot for all things Fantasy Overwatch League. I am your host, Tumblely Drunk, and tonight on episode 39, or is it 39? I can't even remember. That sounds right. Yeah, we'll go with 39. I don't have my actual show notes up, but anyways, we got some general fantasy OWL updates. Had a couple of hiccups with the scoring, but, we got a patch fix with that, with the Stats Lab today. The daily stuff is scored for week 1. Week 2 score should be updated here tonight. So just an FYI on that front, there has been a minor delay there. But before we jump into the agenda for tonight and introduce you to my co-host for the night, because we do not have the full crew, let me just take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight on Twitch for our live show. And of course, I have to thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me tonight, as always, is my co-host. We got Big Head Ed and Ed. Week 2, we were going in. We're like, okay, let's see what the landscape is. And we had quite a few surprises actually in regards to both player performances, who started, who didn't start. Some teams looked better than we were anticipating. Some teams looked worse than we were anticipating. It was like a pretty good mixture of good and the bad, but the score lines, there were a lot of 3-0s this past weekend.
Yeah, it was a pretty screwed up weekend. Let's not lie. There was a bunch of surprise starts, surprise sits. Teams we thought were middle of the road really impressed. Teams we thought were better than last year looked like shit. uh so and fantasy wise, it was another one of those throw your hands in the air because you don't know who the hell's going to start.
And it was a low scoring week on top of that.
It was. And if one of the safe bets of, hey, you're a top 2 diva player in the league isn't playing at all, I don't know what's a safe bet anymore. Like, so spoiler, Fury didn't play.
There is one surefire bet left, Ed.
What's that?
And that is that about there will be about like 40% crunch time.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the statistic they came out with. 40% of, oh my god, that was infuriating. So it's 4.5 hours that the stream was.
Mm-hmm.
An hour and a half of that was gameplay.
Yeah.
All right.
You gotta get that ad revenue, man. What can I say?
I guess so. Shit.
There's a reason why YouTube made $15 billion in ad revenue compared to, the $300 million of Twitch.
Yeah, and there's a reason that, YouTube, Overwatch League made like $165 million off of this. I don't know. It might be the fact that ad revenue means a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, but fantasy-wise, it was a very weird week. We had some... On Saturday, it was one of those, okay, we're going to get some people popping off with numbers, and then they all fell flat on their face on Sunday. It was very weird.
You basically had Philly versus Washington, and then literally the rest of the matches.
Right? And we thought, after what we saw Saturday, we were like, oh, the match of the weekend's going to be Philly versus Mayhem. Honestly, like, people thought that.
And yeah, with how Mayhem
come out, and they're like, here's Byram. What? Because you had Gangman Style like come out and put out arguably a better match on Ana than Architect even had. Like, statistically, in the more important categories, he had a better match than Architect did.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily a better fantasy performance when you're looking at the totals, but in regards to player impact, it was definitely up there.
And then they're like, nah, let's put Byram in against the better team. But we did have the... Alright, so we'll just jump right in to this week's and deal with all this stuff. The rookie like the big name rookie we all talked about, Alarm,
Mm-hmm.
did not disappoint
Yeah.
even remotely.
MVP of the week on highnoon.gg.
Yeah, he had. All right, he did not have high points. He was short by like. Overall, he was short by 3 points.
Well, they base it off the top 3 total for their
And
MVP
by that,
status.
he was still short by a point and a half. So he was within that. So Alarm had 208.12 points on High Noon. And then, Aim God, who everyone kind of wrote off from last year, came in as the number one with 209.97. But then you're like, okay, they're flex supports.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to score big. Then you have another rookie for Philly and Funny Astro, who was my sleeper of the week.
I wouldn't say rookie because he did play this past season.
He's a rookie,
but he's new to the team, and yeah, it's just weird. Like normally we're just used to seeing these flex supports coming out on top, but Funny Astro did run a ton of Baptiste this past weekend, and the numbers were definitely there. He was a decent chunk behind, the top 2, but to see a main support in the top 3, let alone overall, was, very nice to see. And, that wasn't the only kind of like surprise that we saw, because even in the tank situation on Philadelphia specifically, you had Sato posting some pretty respective numbers to the point where when you compare it to, what we had seen, as Rams is probably showing it from his phone, Sato actually put in the second highest score for a tank so far this season, and he just outpaced Poco, outscoring him 136.31 to 108.96.
Yep.
And that's
like
a fairly drastic cutoff there, almost more so than what we saw from their support line.
Yeah, I mean, you had Poco. Well, all right, I get why they did not start Fury, because they mainly ran dual tank and they don't have a backup main tank. I still don't like that. I still would rather have Fury in there because he did flex over to Diva a little bit, and Fury's a better Diva.
Right.
But we're seeing some weird things here. Like Arc is the main support for Washington, so he also outscored every tank. I mean, Sato outscored Poco. I mean, Elevote outscored Roar, but that was only by 4 points. And then you had a drastic drop off. But that was mainly due to, the Outlaws. And
true.
And then you had people like Gargoyle, who probably, in my mind, had the best weekend of any tank. He just did not play all the maps. Like statistically, Gargoyle had the best week out of any of the off tanks, but that didn't really correlate into to fantasy points. Like I believe he led in kill death. He had the fewest amount of deaths.
Yeah, it was only 2 in that one series.
Yeah, like it was just he put out great numbers and he was really good. But we're seeing some very weird things here. So, not only that, I don't want to rub it in because now that Ramses is here, because he's probably hearing it all
for it.
week.
Nah,
Okay.
No, I hear. So, can I be the one to just break the wind on this one?
Yes, you can. I'm giving you full, because was an outlaw. I thought they were going to be better this year.
So, I went back and watched the games, and yes, we know that they have the flu, and so you can't necessarily we know at least 4 players have flu symptoms, which regardless is going to delay reaction time.
Linkser didn't.
No, I'm not. Again, there's coaching changes that I don't agree with there, but to me that makes me think that that's the reason Dante didn't play. Although realistically, you played your entire starting lineup anyway, besides the switching with Jax and Rappel. Houston looks lethargic on Saturday, and they looked just bad on Sunday. Sunday there were points they would fight back a little bit. It was a little bit closer, but it still wasn't like they actually like were ever going to win that game. I will say the one person I think is a highlight from Houston this weekend is the only Outlaws player to post over 100 points, which was Jexay, and he posted 101.5. Jexay, at the point where they're like, yeah, Jexay's in the back line by himself getting melee kills on Widow because nobody's diving Corey ever in this game. Like, it was so Sunday was better than Saturday. It was still rough to watch. You guys could see in our Discord chats how frustrated and upset I was to even or even other people like had to make a comment about it. But I think we don't 100% know yet. I think they're like, I'm not saying they're going to be a great team. I think we're looking at the difference between like a top 12 team and a top 18 team.
Yeah,
thank you for adding the team at the end of that.
Yes.
I was a little worried there. I'm like, Ramses.
Yeah,
intervention time.
It's been a weird week because like we keep hearing like different things about just like the landscape of who the in-game leader is on the Outlaws. We thought that Jexay coming over meant that he was gonna take over shot calling duties because that's what he did on his prior team. Then we're hearing that Blase is actually the in-game leader because he also had that role on Boston, and that's why Blase was starting. But Blase and Hydration are like the same player, so it's like it's just very confusing. And knowing that Blase was never trying to actually mirror the Widow duel and just kept on McCree the entire time, just really put the Outlaws at a disadvantage through and through.
Well, and what I think is that I think that's the reason that if you want to call any reason why they lost 100%, I hate to put it on one like majorly on one guy, but I think Hydration's May just was not even comparable to anybody else in the other teams.
Mm-hmm. Blase legit had the worst McCree in the league so far this year.
Blase was not good either. I think there are points where he did all right. I'm just saying as far as every single fight, Hydration was dead first and was missing the wall. Mm-hmm. Blase was right behind him. I'm not like vouching to say Blase had a good weekend, but like Hydration to me seemed like the initial weak point. You gotta hope that Dante's able to kind of step in there and at least fill more of a gap.
All right. Hold on. I just have to point out some stats to you here about Blase. Out of the 14 people that have played McCree so far this year, Blase, dead last in hero damage, dead last in final blows. Only 13th out of 14 in Deadeye kills, dead last in critical hit accuracy, and second to last in deaths per 10 minutes.
Well, and you even saw coaches and the GM make the point like, look, even if we were sick, like this isn't acceptable. Like this is not okay. So granted, I think they'll look a little bit better against Boston next week. I think you forget about like with the flu. Not everybody is Michael Jordan. We're not going to hold everybody's flu stats up to Michael Jordan flu stats, but I think Houston might bounce back a little bit. By that, I mean, Jexay is probably the only person I feel like starting in that lineup.
Mm-hmm. Rappel isn't horrible.
No, Rappel did all right.
Yeah, once they got Raucus out of there, that was real bad. Raucus, well, when they tried to go Brig Lucio, come on. You can't play Brig Lucio passive.
No. Well, and you can even make the point that, like, I think I said this on Push the Point where, like, Mecco's Diva looked like how I feel playing Diva in comp games, where you're just trying to peel for everybody. You're just like, oh crap, I gotta go there, and I gotta go over there, and then I have to go try and block that. Like, he did all right. I don't think Mecco is good, like, is skill-wise has fallen as much as people may make an argument for. But I think we should remember, like, even when he was on New York, he wasn't, like, the highest-scoring diva either.
Right, but he was also posting more than, like, 74 points.
This is true. I'm just saying, like, I don't think the ceiling on Mecco is as high as people want to believe, score-wise. But yeah, Meko had the lowest total by a player to play every single map for his team with
Yeah, that was
73.72 points.
yeah, for this week. Which is very unfortunate too, because like we really thought like the newer pieces that were incorporated on the Outlaws were basically upgrades across the board. But you know, it's growing pains like it is for a lot of these teams that have incorporated a lot of new pieces. And you know, hopefully the Outlaws we get next week will look to put up more of a fight or just actually play that more aggressive style should they decide to keep running Brig Lucio.
Well,
But
and
uh,
I was going to put it up to you, gentlemen. Do you think now is the time to buy low on Meko? Because there's going to be people who drop him in leagues for sure. Do you think now is the time to buy low?
Yeah. All right. If someone drops him, I think you pick him up.
Don't trade for him. Just pick him up out of waivers.
right, waiver is the
Correct.
best bet. It's just so hard to tell with this team though. I was talking to Ed pre-show, and you know there's been a lot of reactions, obviously, which is the way that the Outlaws kind of flopped this past week. A lot of them have been fairly exaggerated, and I really feel like we need at least another week to really read where this team is exactly on that front. But you know, it's weird because like we did see some other teams run in like Brig Lucio, and you know I remember Paris Eternal was running it, and XZ's McCree definitely got a nice boost because of the armor packs, but we didn't see the same effect when the Outlaws were running it, and that was, you know, more to deal with the fact that they were just playing so passively. But, you know, there were other teams out there that had, you know, inconsistent weeks as well, like the Florida Mayhem, who, you know, started pretty strong in day one. Like, we were like, oh, like, you know, that pink and blue of Runaway really revitalized this team, and then they just kind of ran into a buzzsaw in week two. But, you know, they did have Gay Namjin, Chris, and Yaki all putting up over 100 high noon points, but none of them were able to, like, crack the top 10 scores, which was just kind of, like, dominated by players on, like, the Justice and the Fusion, which was primarily just because of how close that series was, and also to the point that, you know, that one did go 4 maps. It wasn't a 3-0, and there was also a little bit of overtime involved in that series as well to help aid into that. But I have to say, like, across the board for the Mayhem, the new additions to that team, I was very happy seeing the performance of both of the Runaway pieces coming in
Totally agree.
and really
Yes.
proving their worth. And, you know, I know Chris gets a lot of flack in regards to, like, his overall play style, but you know, he still might be the perceived weak link on that team, but, you know, he still posted some pretty decent numbers for that position specifically, but I still wouldn't look at him as being a main support that I would start over a flex spot in, like, a situation where I would with, say, someone like Funny Astro, who wasn't too far behind Alarm near the top.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this, also take into account Gangnam Jim also sat out
Mm-hmm.
For Byram.
for Byram before you joined. I went on my Byram rant. And
No, my Florida friends were all just tweeted like Byram? Question mark, question mark.
everyone
Byram?
was like that. Byram?
Yeah, all 4 of them.
And then you're like, wait, Fate? Like, why are you not playing
Karayan did
so well again?
okay.
Karayan did. I actually really liked Karayan on
Karayan
main
did pretty
team.
well.
Yeah.
Well, but that was the bummer we're seeing. It's like, okay, cool, Fate. Wait, you took out Gargoyle? Oh man, like.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, yeah, it's BQB and Saya player are going to be the real fantasy question marks for this team. Can you trust either one? I don't think you can.
It's so hard to tell right now. You know, I don't think we can safely say just based off of 1 week who is the definite starters, unless said person ran every single map, which was not the case between
Well,
those
I
two
mean,
specifically.
Saya player, I think played 1 map, maybe 2. Saya player had 25 points.
Right. I'm pulling up the maps really quick just to clarify.
Like BQB could be a flyer depending on all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to me, Florida has 4 easily startable players in Gangnajim, Yaki, Gargoyle, and Chris.
Right.
I think those. I think those 4 are fantasy startable.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about Karayan yet. I don't trust Saya player. Don't ever start Byram. Whatever you do, don't ever start Byram.
Yeah, Saya player played 2 out of the 6 with BQB playing 4.
Yeah. He played 2 maps and got 25.23 points.
Not a good average. There.
Not something I would say is startable.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but they definitely impressed. Even though they got 3-0'd.
Right.
Yeah, I think from what it looked like they were trying to experiment with lineups a little bit. I don't think they even said like that they were happy with how they competed against Fusion, but like they didn't necessarily think they were going to take the win this first time. So I think they're still experimenting with lineups a little bit, but I would imagine you're going to see them run Karayan, Gargoyle, Gangnam Jin for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. So, Ramses, do you want to go over? We got an update.
We did actually, and that's we finally got some news regarding the Chinese homestand games that had to be canceled due to the coronavirus. So the league announced that the makeup matches for the previously canceled Chinese homestands will be played in Seoul, South Korea, at a studio space during weeks 6 and 7. Excuse me, and then some of those matches will also be added to the Seoul Dynasty homestand in week 5.
Mm-hmm.
So Dynasty and the Hunters both already played twice that week, so I don't think they're gonna be added. We're looking at probably more of I think the Dragons are probably gonna get the most out of it.
Right.
And then the Spark and Charge only play once that week, so I think we're gonna see the Dragons, Spark, or the Charge get some games added to those homestands. So if you have players on those teams, and if you can do it, sit tight for just 2 more weeks, and you can maybe start getting some points out of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not going to affect the other scheduled homestands through weeks 5 and 7. So anything that's, I think, in the States or in Europe, don't worry about it. And then no specific match times and dates have been confirmed, but all the matches are going to be live streamed on the Overwatch League YouTube channel. So keep an eye on it just so you can be 100% certain with your lineups, but it looks like we're getting a little bit closer to normal.
Yeah, I'd imagine we're gonna get definitive answers in week 4.
Mm-hmm.
More than likely. I can't imagine they're gonna be like, oh yeah, well by the way, like tomorrow we have another game tacked on.
Yeah. Now I want to, and I asked this, and I did not get a definitive answer from anyone at Fantasy Owl, High Noon, or Draft Buff.
Mm-hmm.
Will these matches count fantasy wise? You know what I mean? Like, I almost think they shouldn't. But it's hard to like. It just would give an unfair advantage to certain people. And it would screw with daily. It would screw with most leagues, really. If you happen to have these players get extra games that week,
mm-hmm.
and that would really kind of screw with things. And I don't like that aspect of it. So I hope these don't affect it, but I don't know. It will be hard to determine what, like, from when they're importing numbers to be like, okay, don't import these numbers.
Well, if you don't count them, Ed, then you're basically saying anyone that owns a Dragons player, oh yeah, you're not going to get any points to like week 10 or 11.
Yeah. Well, and I don't think they have fantasy in mind, unfortunately, for those kinds of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's more of the idea of, like, they want to get those teams out in front of viewers as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was just thinking, I was like, crap, we're not going to see Atlanta for like until next week even. Like, some of those teams we're just not going to see for a long time.
Mm. Yeah, it's just the way it is now.
Mhm.
Like as bad as that sounds, it's just kind of the way everything's going. Where you're just gonna go a long time without seeing your favorite players.
It's a shaky start, kind of like the Outlaws start to their season.
Wah wah.
You know what? I agree with you. I'm not, like, it's not, can you like what? How am I supposed to defend Saturday and Sunday?
You don't. You don't.
You can't. I will say I will defend them slightly.
What?
In that
Okay, go ahead.
one, I am taking into account a little bit of a fact that they did say a large majority of them had the flu. I will let that play into account a little bit.
Not everyone is Michael Jordan. Not everybody can pull the flu game out of their butt like that.
Okay, you don't need to pull the Michael Jordan flu game out. Quit making that reference. They're not that good.
Oh no, they're not.
It's like if Michael Jordan's third stringer pulled out a flu game. Like, what would he do if he had the flu?
It's like if Dennis Rodman.
Eight points,
It would
2
be-
boards, 3 assists.
It would be more Michael Jordan in MLB.
Yes, think that. That's your ceiling. Also, they did play some good teams.
Mhm.
They did, they were definitely the weak team going in to this homestand.
Yeah, they weren't favored in either match.
Yeah, they went up against the Justice and the Man. Justice, I think, surprised everyone with how good they played. And Mayhem, I think, really impressed everyone. So, like Totem said earlier, I'm gonna give them a little bit of the benefit of the doubt until we see them next time.
Mm-hmm.
So, how are me and Totem more positive about the Outlaws than Rams?
You know what it is? It's like
you're a Cleveland Browns fan right now.
No,
You're just you've accepted your fate of sucking.
Mm-hmm.
I was making a joke to Lebowski. I was like, how many Houston jerseys do I have to trade in to get a Washington jersey? Because like
barter with people online. You're like, I got a Jake jersey, I got a Ruckus jersey, I got a Mooma jersey. Can I get a Stratus jersey?
Please, bro, please.
What you guys don't know is that the reason why Ramses doesn't have his camera on is because he's too embarrassed to show his face after how the Outlaws did in week 2.
I mean, I can just screw up the screen layout if you want. I don't want to be that guy with the giant head. I figured I would let it go this time.
No, it's all good.
Well, no, I agree with Ed. It's more of like, it's like I said, it's tempering expectations, but I think it was just how bad Saturday looked. Where it'd be like 30 seconds of, okay, we're kind of holding this fight, and that was shit. All right, like we're like, you could count like on one hand the amount of successful fights they had. Sunday was a little bit better. I will say Sunday was a little bit better. If Mooma can stop hitting those Janus shatters, that'd be great. Because I understand you're trying to predict where someone's going to go with the shatter, but like when you hit their shield 8 times in a row, maybe look somewhere else.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we got to look at the week ahead. Obviously, every week we have been doing the unlimited drafts on highnoon.gg. We're still waiting on a week 2 to actually post scores and like update the leaderboard, all of that good stuff.
Unlock our players so you can actually like start them.
That too. Did all of us get burned by Fury in unlimited this past week?
Probably.
I got burned a lot this past week, or this past 2 weeks. Mainly Fury burned me in unlimited. I think last week I talked about my burns on Bruce and Smexy.
Yeah. Fury obviously didn't play. Gargoyle didn't have like the best week either. But like everyone else that I had actually posted numbers because I did have Alarm. I had Aim God, so I had the like top 2 scorers in that regard. But looking at the week ahead, I've actually got quite a few teams that are playing. You've got 8 teams total playing over the course of this weekend. So, yes.
Totem, are you and I the only people who played in our host league on Sunday?
I was there.
I'd have to check.
It just shows you and me, but
we'll circle back to that in a bit. But
sorry about that.
What I'm looking at for this week, for my tank line, and this is tentative. I don't know if I'm actually going to start these two, but right now I have penciled in Eldevote and Hotba. But then there's part of me that's like, well, Sato just put up a ridiculous point total this past week. So I'm just like, can I make an argument for him where maybe we'll see him pick up the record for like final blows for a tank again? I don't know. It's kind of like a question mark, but it's kind of interesting that that's even a thought that I'm having processing right now where I would consider running a main tank, let alone one that a lot of people like to rag on that front. But, for the most part, the flex tanks have been a little bit more consistent on that front. Support line, fairly obvious. I'm going to stick with the two that fared the best this past week with Alarm and Aim God. And I'm going to stick with the same DPS duo of Corey and Carpe, which is what I started last week. So not too many variations here, as a lot of the teams are kind of like the same this weekend. And, if I'm going to trust anyone in the captain slot, I'm looking at the Octopus Kane, Jonak. So he should put up some pretty decent numbers here as well. But, there's definitely like some intriguing people that could be coming in, even if they only play one game. Like, I hope we'll get to see Hanbin debuting this week for Paris Eternal, because I really want to see how, the Element Mystic core of that team is going to do once all of them are eligible to play. And, Xe popped off in his debut. I'm expecting similar things from Hanbin, but with the way that the tank rotations have been, I don't know. Like, it's so hard to trust your gut instinct so far this season, knowing that there's been a hefty combination of double barrier and then also off tanks playing main tank, and just a lot of like underperforming flex tank scores as well. So it's kind of just like we're just gonna throw shit on the wall and see what sticks, basically.
Yeah, my unlimited basically is identical to yours. Truly, and I think both of us kind of take into account the benefit of having two people playing two matches. You're looking at Hotba, Eldevote, both playing two matches. I don't trust Poco. If I was to take a Philly tank, I'd take Sato over them. And I don't know if I need to see more main tank production out there before I can trust it. I won't trust anyone on the Outlaws. Plain and simple. No one on the Outlaws is worthy of a start. But we lucked out, with Aim God, Alarm, and Jonak all getting 2 starts this week. I think that just makes it easy right there. It just makes it easy. And then, we also, it makes it easy when you have Corey and Carpe both on 2 starts. And I think Eldevote is an obvious choice for tank, because he's playing no matter what. Like, he's gonna play. The only thing is with, like, I guess the only thing you could truly question is Hotba if for some reason they decide to play Bianca. I don't know why, but that's really the only thing. You could take a risk on other people, but at that point you're just throwing your hands up and saying, screw it. I'm gonna try and figure out something else to do.
Yeah, and like, even if you're looking at people that only play once, Xe in that prior week posted almost like 159 points, which was, looking back, I think like second or third overall in regards to like DPS performances so far this week. So like, even though you don't have like that second like opportunity, that Eternal Justice game could be a lot closer on paper than we might believe, just knowing that Justice played 2 very kind of like polarizing matches this past weekend.
Well, and that's why I have Exian over Carpe, but that's my only variation between our rosters and between our 3 rosters. Is just, I think that Carpe has a little bit of a stiffer competition with at least New York, And the problem was like I think Carpe goes Widow a little bit more than Exy does.
Right.
And that Widow, like you get the kills, which is nice, but you don't have the sustained damage, which is going to really bump your numbers up. Not like Symmetra.
Yeah, the other thing is and this isn't for Unlimited, but I will say Hanbin is for fantasy OWL daily. That could be a pretty decent buy right there. God, Paris is going to be so scary.
They just have to get to that point. And like, even if that team just goes 50-50 until Sparkle becomes eligible to play, like they can still make a push to play-ins.
Yeah, 100%. And the way Nico plays Mei, Nico's, if Mei is constant, they're fine on the DPS line. It's honestly, it's a matter of if, the tank line holds up at this point and who they decide to run as their flex support. Whether they go Gray or Hip, which I think that they probably should go Hip at this point.
Yeah, that split
he performed
really
a little
hurt.
better. But they, right now, you really can only there's only two. I would trust Hanbin to start. Hanbin and Ixie are the only two Paris players that I truly would start right now. Nico is a close third, but I'm a little weary of Mei one tricks. Not one trick, but like someone who's on Mei the entire time.
Right.
And not switching off. And FD God, I don't know, FD God. He performed pretty well week 1.
I'm gonna have him in my fantasy OWL lineups just because he's pretty cheap. He's at 14.
Yeah, Hanbin's at 14.
I have him too.
Okay, yes, please.
That was
I'm excited.
After an adjustment too, because initially he was posted at 10.
Yeah, that's one of those. Let's go ahead and bump that one up just a tad.
So looking at the week ahead, obviously, we have 8 teams playing in total. Are there any players in particular that you're definitely looking at not starting and just having them on the bench this week? Ed, I know you mentioned Mei players specifically haven't necessarily posted the best numbers. But regardless, if you don't have another option, obviously you're still going to be starting them in that sort of situations. But there are a lot of players that just haven't seen the stage as of yet, kind of going into this week on these teams. But anyone in particular really standing out to you on that front?
I mean, okay, I'm just gonna flat out say this, and this is more team wise. No one on Boston. No one on Houston.
What about what about Myeonbong?
He did not perform. If you have other options, start other. He did not do good fantasy wise.
All right.
He's if you have no one else, yeah, start him. But
yeah, he posted 67 points.
Yeah, it was bad. Toronto Defiant, I don't trust any of the DPS players. Plain and simple. Kareev, sure, start. That's probably, and Nevix are probably the only 2 startable ones on that team. Bernard and Glister, until you hear further, only startable players for London. At this point, the Justice. God, they have 4 or 5 people who, in a pinch, could start. Corey is a must start. Aim Gods must start. Elivote must start.
Stratus
I would not
put up some good points as well this weekend as well.
Yeah, Stratus Arc was top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roar. I mean, Roar was. I would not start Roar. Again, that's the main tank thing.
He did put up decent points this weekend though. He had 136.
But again,
Houston. But
yeah. But the only other one I'll say this is don't start Poco. Just don't start Poco because you can't count on him starting. even.
I think it's worth the gamble.
Are you willing? It's if you're. I think you just have to know what you're getting into because there's no guarantee that Poco plays all 8 games.
That and he's gonna play Orisa a lot. And Orisa is just not putting up the numbers. So I don't know. What about you guys? Who are some of your must starts? Who are some of your stay the F away from them?
I mean, you did take a lot of them, so I gotta go through the Rolodex. I think
I had a lot of the don't go near them.
Yeah. I think Stratus is a really interesting play because he gets to play Doomfist a decent amount as well. So I think because you saw him put up, I think with High Noon, he put up like 136 points. So I think, and especially with like that game against London, if you have him, I definitely put him in there. New York is still interesting to me because just none of their DPS pop out enough for me like to be excited about starting any of them. Especially Who Are You? I think just because for as good as the Genji play is, we don't get to see that much of it.
Yeah, but
it's not like
he at least was in there for the bulk of the maps, and he was like their stationary DPS at least. So at least it wasn't a situation where like SBB was only coming in and like played 2 maps for them.
And I agree. I think if you have him, like I'm not excited about starting him this week just because I didn't see huge points out of him. I like starting FD God. I think that we're getting in this weird spot where there are some main supports who, because of like these split weeks where not all the flex supports are available, like I like FD God. I like Kelix as well. Kelix got some decent points. He got like over 100 points in draft buff as well with week 1 against Paris. And that wasn't a game that they necessarily like were doing very well in as well. Like they kind of just pulled it out at the very end. So I like Kelix. I agree, though, nobody on London except for those 2 guys is touchable. And nobody on Houston except if you have to Jexay. But, like, Jexay is, like, if you need somebody off the waiver wire. Do you got anybody, Totem?
Well, I will say, like, when it comes to the main support argument, the only other name that we haven't brought up is Funny Estro, who did post a top 10 total for the season so far this past week. So in regards to main supports, the only one that he was behind at this point was Rain, who actually had like 0.3 points higher overall. So definitely a safe bet. And I don't think I agree with you on the London situation in regards to the DPS. Because even Bobble wasn't even that far behind Glister overall in points. Glister posted 111.74. Bobble wasn't that far behind at 105.5. So it's not like there was a huge differential there to make it where, like, okay, like, I can't imagine not starting him in that position. But, like, even at that point, it was still... I wouldn't say... It might be, like, slightly above average in regards to the DPS performances that we have seen. But it wasn't, like, a situation where... Like, Toronto DPS were only posting, like, mid-70s. So in that situation, Bobble is definitely someone that you'd want to be starting in that end. But, you know, outside of that, like, we primarily covered the bulk of them. But just be wary of the Outlaws probably for, like, another week until they sort out whatever issues is going on with that team. But I really do feel like... You know, kind of like going in, like we kind of expected a slow start out of Houston. And maybe it was a little bit shakier than what we were anticipating. But, you know, there is going to be a lot of fantasy potential once they start to get their feet underneath them on that front. But it should be a very exciting week of games.
I was going to ask, I know, Ed, you kind of touched on it already. Out of all of Toronto's DPS, I think Surefour is the only one that plays every single map.
Nope. I mean, he didn't.
I think I would, again, something I've learned with Overwatch League is there's times where you hope a team learns their lesson and then they come back the next week.
But that's the thing is, when they pulled Surefour, they put in Logix, who threw the team on his back and played Widowmaker.
Well, because in my mind, you should be running a Logix Surefour the whole time. But
regardless of who started, Surefour still posted the best numbers in that rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, you still have to be weary of maps played total. But yeah,
100%.
like just
I'm trying to see right now Scrolling down.
Okay, so
He had
Surefour,
74 points.
yeah, Agilities was second with 58.58 on that team, and then Logic's was like 40 points. Like,
So,
none of
like,
them are great numbers by any stretch of the imagination.
exactly. So, Note had more points than Surefour.
And he was on Reinhardt.
Trill had more points than Surefour. Okay?
Mhm.
So you really
Alright.
want to come at me about Surefour?
No, I'm not coming at you. I just
Yeah,
wanted,
a little bit.
I wanted to get a
A
opinion.
little bit.
Oh,
Muy pequeño.
Mm-hmm. Now, with that said, I do want to update people on like how daily has been going for us. Ed, you absolutely crushed me in the budget league. I haven't actually looked at the scores, but I see the rank. I did not win either, so congrats on that.
Oh, we're talking about week 1. Okay.
Yes, we're talking about week 1 because week 2
'Cause
scores
we don't
haven't
have week 2
posted.
yet.
That
That's 2 Saturday scores I thought was posted, but I'm
No.
probably wrong.
Nope, not week 2 Saturday.
And-
Week 2 has not posted.
when I
No,
tried
it's-
to look it up, it logged me out, so that's fantastic. Good time.
So it, like I had a bad week because I had Smexy starting
Mhm.
and day on Saturday, and then I had Brucein starting on day 2. And here's the kicker, because on daily you can put a 2 times multiplier.
Right.
Had it on both of them.
Why would you put 2 times on Brucein? Why?
Because the thing is I was going for, okay, I think he's gonna come in play, and not a lot of people are gonna start him.
Right.
So if he comes in and pops off, and I had the 2 times, I'm gonna smoke everyone.
And it didn't happen. Now,
And
now
he didn't even play.
I will
As a-
say that first day we only had 3 of us in the host league. Ramses was not included in that.
I was summoning my power to make sure I could crush Ed on Sunday.
that was that what it was. But you know,
Yeah,
just
that's
looking at the point totals on that first day, we saw scores of 1,111, 1,048, and Ed, unfortunately, your times 2 multiplier on a goose egg did not help you, as you kind of got smoked that first day overall. But I took day 1 off of a team that actually had all starters, so that definitely helped me in the long run. And you know, looks like Bob got points from everyone as well. But man, like Smex not starting was a little
Brutal.
upsetting. And like I know myself personally, like I didn't have time to adjust my lineup for Sunday, so I know that one kind of bit me in the ass on that second day as well.
Well, they're still trying to lock. We're still having some issues with how early they lock in the contests. As
Correct.
Well,
I know,
what
like-
the issue was is I was talking to Fowl about this, is the China maps
Mhm.
were still in there. So the matches, it was saying that matches were live because originally matches were supposed to be going on.
Right.
And that was the issue. So it was still showing it was live because games were supposed to be going on, but they weren't.
Yeah, so normally like we were thinking like, well, maybe the overall loser for the host league would have to have like a dedicated segment. Bob lost the second day, only posting 451.52, and let's talk about this lineup that Bob had really quick. It's like I'm not gonna rag him on Violent because that all bit us in the ass, right? I don't think all of us started him, but
I
like
did not play Violet.
I did, and I had the times 2 on him, and that's because I couldn't adjust it. And Bob also did the same thing. But there was another pick, and I know why he did it, because he's met said player multiple times. He's hung out with him, but Bob started AKM as one of his DPS options. So he had 2 goose eggs for that, and then he also had fusions. As one of his things as well, who only posted 64.5 points. And when we're looking at the point differentials here, I did not have a great game on Sunday. I only had 482 points.
Yeah,
So
but both of you were missing 2 people.
yes.
Like that is an important factor.
Yeah, mine was my support line, actually.
Your whole support line was down. So
Yeah.
like, and I had 646 points,
Mhm.
and I was missing someone.
Hey Ed, how many points did I have that week?
772. And you had everyone starting.
Interesting. And I will thank. So it's interesting too, because I really wish. I think going forward, we may have to start moving the double multiplier onto people who aren't flex supports necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
I think like this week, I would probably put it on Corey for all my fantasy, like for all my daily stuff.
Yeah.
Just because it doesn't seem like flex supports are getting the damage in, or getting the kills in, I guess, to push them over the hump.
Well, I mean, so this week I'm actually in, and the points aren't there yet, but like on day one, I have double the points on Alarm.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna go very well for me. Like,
Yeah, if you had it on Alarm or Aim God, I think you're gonna crush it.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Now, granted, I had some other weak spots, like I had Gargoyle and Meko. At least Meko started.
Right.
Like, that was my one lineup where I didn't have Fury in. So I was like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I can at least do fine on Saturday's matches.
Yeah, somebody who had Fury in, rip me.
So your trash talking is going to be good till tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's whatever. But I'm gonna put one in the counter for Ramses beating Ednar, and I'm gonna savor it. I'm gonna add it to my millions and millions of other victories I have over.
So we're 1-1.
Okay.
We're 1-1.
I didn't compete in Saturday's game. In last Saturday's game, so
you came in fourth place.
It's a lot.
No, I'm not in the standings. Therefore, you can't count that one.
Yes, you can, because you're supposed to be.
No.
Fine.
No. Yeah, the Fury thing is really gonna bite people in the butt. I wonder if we're gonna see Fury trades in fantasy. I think it might be worth it, depending on like what you can get for him.
Let's be real. Have you ever actually seen a trade in Fantasy Overwatch League? I haven't.
I traded a guy. I traded Lastro for Aim God, and I'm a happy boy because of it. But there's usually like 5 trades per season.
If that.
Yeah.
No, see, I would dangle Fury out there just to see what you can get.
So the real question is, at the end of the day, did the Fusion sign Fury for the sole fact that they didn't want Fury to eat all of their ultimates?
You just imagine their scrims are just Poco firing directly into Poco firing grabs directly into Fury. Just over. It's like soccer.
Mm-hmm. Basically. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump into our pick'ems really quick. So I did select 3 matches that are happening this weekend. So looking at the Saturday game that's kicking things off at 12 p.m. Pacific time, we have what should be a banger of a match, because we got New York Excelsior going up against Philadelphia Fusion. So, looking at this one, New York looked pretty dominant. Philadelphia, when they wanted to win and not throw a map, looked actually pretty good. And Carpe definitely lived up to expectations. He seems to be back in the groove. Ivy looked fantastic on the Mei as well. And really, maybe they didn't play as aggressive as we were expecting with that support line with Alarm and Funny Astro, but Philly looked pretty solid as well. So looking at this one, like, who are you guys favoring in this matchup, knowing that both teams really are bringing a lot of firepower this weekend?
Me personally, I am actually favoring the Fusion on this one. New York looked like they had some issues.
Mm-hmm.
The DPS line wasn't short up that great. The support line, I don't think you can ever really have that many questions about the support line. But the tank line didn't look all that phenomenal either. Now, people are going to be talking about hot bombs, but hot bombs are flashy plays. That doesn't mean that they're playing well. So, Poco can have Poco bombs versus hot bombs.
That's only season 1. There's no such thing as a Pokebomb anymore.
But you could either both do that. So I think it's going to come down to the DPS lineup, and the DPS lineup for Philly is far superior in my mind than New York. They have, they have the better May in my mind, and they have the better, I'm gonna pop off and destroy your whole team player in Carpe. Because I think their support lines are probably pretty even at this point from what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna give the benefit of the doubt to the Fusion.
I'd actually say the same thing as that. I think that you have a higher. I think right now you have a higher ceiling as far as performance, and I think fantasy wise, I would imagine that Fusion's players do a little bit better. The only thing I could see New York doing better in would be tank line, but even then, like, they still look shaky and they still look like they were trying to put stuff together.
Yeah, I was looking at the odds for New York's other match, and you might get a good chuckle out of this money line. And this is with the Outlaws Excelsior game. They have Outlaws at plus 771, and then New York is posted at minus 2,500.
What?
Like they're wrong.
So that's the thing.
There's money to be made then. Okay, all right.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But anyways, moving into the second game we want to talk about. This is another Saturday game. This one at 4 p.m. Pacific time. We got Paris Eternal going up against the Washington Justice. So Justice looked pretty good this past week. A couple of mental mistakes, kind of like what we saw from Philadelphia as well. But they definitely have the home crowd behind them because they are going to be in Washington for this homestand. And, Paris looked, honestly, a lot better than what we were anticipating, at least in the early go-in of the season. We also have a potential debut coming on board in regards to the off-tank position, with Hanbin now being eligible to play. But, that matchup in regards to the hit scan between XZ and Corey has a lot of potential to maybe even surpass some of the other just role versus role matches that we'll see throughout this weekend. So, looking at this one, Ramses, who are you giving the nod to in this one?
I would go Washington, just because I think if you go 6v6, I think Washington has just a couple better players. I want this to be close. I think this is going to be a really fun game. But I think that Washington takes it. When you compare flex supports, it's not even a question.
Mm-hmm.
That Aim God's better. And then I would say when you compare main tanks, it's not even a question.
I feel like a lot of this could just boil down to how much pressure Hanbin or FD God puts on Carpe in regards to the Widow.
Or on Corey.
Or yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think that's really the big deal. I think when we saw when Corey was getting chased, it made team fights a lot easier for the other team. But once they left Corey alone, it was ridiculous. He was just popping off. Imagine being Houston and just never sending anybody to deal with Corey as he picks across your entire team.
Right on.
I personally think I'm gonna ride the XE is equals God train on this one, and I think their team, from what we saw with Paris in week 1, the team actually got better by now. So I think I'm going to give the slight nod to Paris on this one, because I think Hanbin can actually pressure Corey. And if you can pressure Corey, I think they're going to have a good shot, because I still don't have full faith in Stratus being able to
stay on the point.
Pressure on. Yeah, put the pressure on if Corey's getting shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ivy, I had the faith in if they could shut Carpe down. I do not have the faith in Corey, or faith in Stratus if they shut Corey down.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm going to give this one to Paris.
All right, so the last match I want to look at is on Sunday at 2 p.m. Pacific time, when we have the Toronto Defiant going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. So, Toronto, is still an interesting team. They have that dynamic of having a lot of big names. But they kind of underperformed as a unit overall, and Philly did look a little bit cleaner, even though there were a lot of mental mistakes. So, Philly has a really tough match to like kind of start things off. But do you feel like this 1 week turnaround is enough to basically clean up the issues that kind of plagued them this past week, despite going 2-0?
I would say so, because I don't think Toronto's going to be that stiff of a competition, if I'm being honest. I think Philly's going to win. I think it'll be closer. I think they'll take a map off of Philly, but I just don't see them being able to hang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't see Toronto. I mean, I'm not a Toronto fan. I don't think I've ever been that high on them, and I think Philly. If I Philly over New York, there's no way I'm gonna have Toronto over Philly.
Right.
But wait! You hear me out? Wait.
No, hard pass.
All right. So with that being said, guys, I think it's time that we wrap things up for tonight. So Ed, why don't you go ahead and let our listeners know what honestly is like the best way to really help us out is?
Well, the best way you can help us out is show some support for the show by giving us a review over on iTunes or your podcasting app of choice, preferably iTunes. Any feedback or constructive criticism is always welcomed. It'll offer us insight on how we can make for a better listening experience for all of you. Totem, why don't you tell us about where this great resource we have to find everything Overwatch related?
You mean the one that I still need to post for this past weekend? Yeah, that one. But basically, we have a podcast directory which focuses on all facets of Overwatch and competitive scene, community, all of that fun bejazzle and more at owlnshow.com/OW-recall. I did.
You just used an edism.
I did, because you're here. But anyway, so basically, Sundays, occasionally Mondays, except this week, I do the weekly recall, which has the episodic listen of all the prior week's content. So keep up with all the latest on the Twitter page at OW Recall. Now, with that being said, we do have an event coming up basically this weekend, Ed. So why don't you go ahead and let them know what's going on?
Well, you can join us for our wonderful game night. So game night returns on Saturday, February 22nd, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific. Join us for a night of community games. Link up with us over on our Discord server to get invited to the lobby. Matches will be streamed live on our Twitch. We will send out like reminders and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
We're shooting for at least 12 people, because if I have to play that GD Roadhog hook game again, I'm going to rage quit like there's no tomorrow.
Okay, so what would be worse? Playing that mode, Ed, or just adding bots to lobbies?
That mode?
I mean, you already have Ed, so there's one bot right there.
Oh, that's a fair point.
Really, Ramses? Because you're not much better.
I've seen him tank. So
Are you gonna make it, Ramses, or is your computer still in the shop?
I took it to the shop today. I should have it tomorrow morning. I will have it by this weekend. So help me God.
Yeah. So you'll be there on Saturday night.
I should be, yes.
Yes.
Fantastic.
At least for a little bit, yeah.
And we hope to see you guys out there. Just make sure that you are in the Discord server, hanging out in the Game Nut lobby, and we'll get you invited once we have that set up. But of course, there are a couple of other ways that you guys can support us. So Ramses, why don't you let them know additional ways how they can do that?
Yeah, if you want to show some additional support to the network, you could consider pledging to us via Patreon. Just gets to us directly. Tiers start at just $1 a month, and you can find more information about all the different benefits and tiers at patreon.com/OWL where you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, including Blazing Bob, Brendan, Josabel, Owl, Kesha, and Agent Life in helping our network grow.
Absolutely, and we do appreciate everyone that has helped support not only the show, but our podcast network as a whole throughout the years. So with that being said, if you guys want to get a hold of us, you can do so a number of different ways. You can email us at contact@owlnshow.com. You can find us on Twitter at OWL by the numbers. You can find basically all of our podcast content on our website at owlnshow.com. We also have a YouTube channel where you can find the Twitch VODs, a couple of other stuff as well at youtube.com/c/Overwatch League Network. And of course, make sure you link up with us on Discord, especially this weekend for our game night at discord.me/OWLN show. Of course, we always have conversations going on in there as well. And we do stream basically podcast Monday through Wednesday here on twitch.tv/OWLN show. And we are a Twitch affiliate. So if you are looking for another way to support us, you can, either subscribe or throw, Twitch Prime our way if you are an Amazon Prime member. And you could unlock our network emoticon. We do stream Overwatch League Network on Monday, starting at 7 p.m. Pacific time. You can find this show, OWL by the Numbers, airing Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then you could follow Edinar and I on Heroes Never Die, which is our variety Overwatch show, which is quickly approaching episode 200, by the way. That is Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And then host streams are hit or miss lately, but, they do run on a flex schedule, so if you want to know when that's going live, be sure to follow us on Twitch so you get notified when that is happening. And one more time, our Patreon is at patreon.com/OWL Network. So with that said, Ed, why don't you go ahead and, plug where our listeners can find you at?
First question of the week.
40
What is the highest grossing movie soundtrack from the 90s?
It's not Titanic, right?
I don't know.
Oh, dang. It's The Lion King. Final answer.
Final answer,
The
Lion
King?
Totem, what's yours answer?
I'm trying to think, what the most popular songs were in the 90s. I'm just gonna throw a random one out there, and I'm gonna say Space Jam.
that
Space Jam soundtrack is good.
Yeah, that is not a bad one. I did not get this. It was not Titanic.
Okay.
Okay.
So what was it?
The Bodyguard.
Man, Whitney Houston really carried that movie that far, didn't she?
It sold 45 million copies worldwide. Titanic sold 30 million worldwide. So
The more you know.
The more you know. All right, so you can reach me on Twitter at @NarOverwatch, or you can see me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar, where I will be streaming Apex, Hearthstone Battlegrounds, and actually I'm going to start streaming some variety because I'm a horrible gamer. So I've never played any of these classic, amazing games. Like I've played WoW, Overwatch, Hearthstone, Legends of Runeterra, Destiny, and Apex. That's it. So I've never played any of the other Star Wars games, Titanfall games, anything like that. So I'm gonna start streaming playthroughs of the first time playthroughs of a lot of these games. So make sure to come over there. Ramses, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at Ramses_W, and you can find my other show, Push the Point, at PushPointPod. And yeah, we have started the I've beaten Ednar counter at 1 victory this week, with many more to come. Join along for the ride. This is
Really?
not going to. This is not.
So when I beat you this week, or what would be week 2?
Mm-hmm.
So then I just get to shit on you.
The long season.
Yeah, there you go.
No, Ed and I actually our other podcasts are engaged in a challenge coming up in the near future. We're going to play 3v3 Apex, and we're going to play 3v3 Overwatch 2 games, which I'm pretty bad at. So it should be fun. We're going to hope John Labosco carry me as hard as they can. So it'll be a good time. We'll let you know on here when it comes up.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. You're gonna get destroyed at
Bro, if I
Apex.
just play monkey the whole time, I don't even have to aim.
There you go.
There's
Try
no
to rely
characters
on that.
like that in Apex.
Unfortunately not. Well, you can also find our other host, Blazin' Bob, on Twitter at BLAZZIN_BOB. Or, just search for Boomer Bob on Twitter, and I'm sure you will find him on that front. As for myself, you can find me on Twitter at TonallyDrunkCTR. And I do stream Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, both Overwatch and Hearthstone Battlegrounds, as I inch ever so closer to 6K rated, just 10K below that at this point.
10, not 10K.
Eh.
Well,
Regardless,
10K
I'm gonna push.
means you're at negative 4K, which I don't think is an actual rank.
It could be. It could be
That's where
Ramsey's main
Ramsey's
tank
would
rate.
be.
Hey.
But regardless, Monday, Wednesday, Thursdays on Twitch, twitch.tv/TrumblyDrunk. And with that being said, guys, I do want to thank you again for joining us for another episode of OWL by the Numbers. And hopefully we'll see you guys back tomorrow night for the next episode of Heroes Never Die. You guys take care, and we'll see you then.
Adios, y'all.
Later.